President Biden and McCarthy allegedly strikes a tentative deal on the debt ceiling. All right, on the debt. So obviously, we know that there's a whole lot of talk about, shutting down the government and all of this other type of stuff. But let's deep dive into this, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Make sure y'all hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I want to break this down for y'all a little bit so y'all can absolutely understand what's going on, because I don't want y'all to just look at it from the perspective of, oh man, fun stuff, DJ Envy and all of that. You need to know what's going on in the government that's going to affect you on a day-to-day basis. So let's deep dive into it.
We begin with that major breakthrough in Washington. President Biden spoke late today at the White House about finally striking a debt ceiling deal with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Biden saying it avoids the worst possible crisis, a U.S. default. Now, after weeks of tense and sometimes bitter negotiations, Biden and McCarthy still have to clear one more critical hurdle, getting both the Senate and the House to approve the measure before the country runs out of cash on June 5th. And we are dangerously close to that deadline. And tonight, some hardline Republicans and Democrats are slamming the deal, upset about some of the concessions made. So getting votes in the House and Senate may be difficult. We have team coverage tonight. ABC's Jay O'Brien is standing by on Capitol Hill. But we begin with ABC's Elizabeth Schulze from the White House.
So before we go into this, let me help y'all to understand something. So some of you guys don't care. Some of you have been living under a rock. And then some of you just automatically assume that certain things is going to get done based off of the historical significance of the debt ceiling. Oh, we got to get it done. We got to get it done. So you'll see the wrangling back and forth. You're going to see the doomsdayers that say, oh man, if the debt don't get done, it's going to be catastrophic. It'll get done. All right. But one thing that I want to say is that when you start to look at this and you start to pay attention to what's going on, you got to understand that we have a process in place for the United States that basically allows for us not to have a dictatorship, A, and then B, is supposed to be checks and balances in place, which is why you have your different legislative branches that have to approve what it is that's being done by the president, by the House Speaker, so on and so forth. So when you see things play out, then they have to pass it over to Congress. And then what they have to do is the same thing that you have to do on a regular basis. They have to go out and recruit in order to get the votes up that actually helps pass through what it is that they negotiated. So they go back and they say, hey, guys, Democrats, what do you guys want? What is it that we need to do in order to ensure that this thing get enough votes to pass through? And then McCarthy and all of these guys got to go through and say, hey, Republicans, what do you guys want? And then they go back to each other and they start to negotiate, and they supposed to compromise. I think they all in bed together. But you got to understand that each individual person that's in these legislative branches, especially your Congress members, have to supposedly go back to their constituents and the people that voted them in order to ensure that they get what they want within that specific section of who it is that they're promising something to happen. So when you see these Congress members and they go up and they getting reelected and they going out and they pitching and they talking to their constituents and they talking to the different people and the lobbyists and all of these large companies that then send them money and back them, they have a vested interest in seeing this thing get successful. So they're going to try to voice their concerns. They're going to try to hold the president and the House Speaker over a barrel in order to ensure that they get what they want, because everybody is incentivized now. Now, remember what I said. It's supposed to be checks and balances in order to ensure that everything runs well. So the president just can't come in and he's bought out, or he's being controlled, or he only looks at things one way as far as Republicans or Democrats or whatever, and then he's incentivized to do something, and then as a result, a whole bunch of other people suffer as a result of it, right? But what's happened is that as these checks and balances get into place, different people are paid and bought for. And so it turns from being checks and balances to how much money can we pillage and how much money can we get as a result, whether it becoming reelected or being incentivized or so on and so forth. How much money can we get out of this thing, or how can we look good to the people that we represent, because the people that you elect is usually just a reflection of the people that vote for them. So what I'm trying to tell y'all is that checks and balances have turned into checks and balances, checking accounts, and how much your balance is in your checking account. It's supposed to be checks and balances as far as like protecting the people, public servants, and it's turned into checks and balances. Let's continue.
Tonight, with the world's most powerful economy at stake, President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy finally striking a deal to prevent the U.S. government from running out of cash to pay its bills.
The agreement prevents the worst possible crisis, a default for the first time in our nation's history.
Do you wish you had started these negotiations sooner?
No, it wouldn't make any difference.
Biden and McCarthy clinching an agreement that would lift the nation's $31 trillion debt ceiling for 2 years through the 2024 presidential election, while also placing new restraints on federal spending. The 99-page
31 trillion. That is America's debt. So basically, when they say the debt ceiling, they're saying the available amount that the U.S. government can owe. So if they raise the debt ceiling, that means that the government would then owe more money, right? Which, if they default on that debt, then it becomes catastrophic on a global scale, right? And so they're negotiating how high the debt ceiling should be. If you reduce the debt ceiling, then that would mean that the federal government would have to reduce spending. Now think about this for a minute, guys. In every other space in your life, right? Debt is bad. I mean, in every single space in your life. If you have credit card debt, we rail against it. If you have student loan debt, we rail against it, right? The more debt you have, even biblically, owe no man nothing, right? But we exist in a society where we've justified a debt ceiling because everybody is only focused on what they can get out of it instead of what best benefits the nation as a whole. And all you're looking at when you look at these legislative branches, when you see all the wasteful spending, when you see an inability for us to even be able to manage our finances as a country, what makes you think that you're not incentivized to mismanage your finances as individuals? Because again, the people that are in office is a reflection of the people that voted for them. When you see everything that plays out, banks are too big to fail, you should go and get a 30-year mortgage. They're incentivizing you to operate off of debt because that is literally how it is that we're running as a nation. Let's continue.
bill released late tonight. Both leaders admit they made compromises.
It doesn't get everything everybody wanted, but that's in divided government. That's
It never does it?
where we end up.
Sources tell ABC News the budget deal keeps most federal spending roughly flat next year, raising it.
So, most federal spending is flat, meaning that there's no haircuts in the federal government. If you ever want to go into a secure space where you just want to have a good job, you largely don't have to worry about ever getting laid off, you're not going to have too much of a big bag as a result of it, go work in a legislative branch or go work in the federal government. Go work for the state. Go work for the city, something like that. The one thing that they do that you don't ever have to worry about happening at your regular job, because if your job don't start making money or they start going into the red, they're gonna lay you off. If you want to just have a job to where you can probably retire comfortably if you pour into your 403B and all of this other type of stuff, go work for the federal government. Spending roughly flat, meaning that they're not reducing the amount of money that they're spending on the federal government on any level. Social programs, military spending, the whole 9 yards.
By 1% in 2025. Defense spending would increase.
Now, why is defense spending increasing? What people don't understand is that the U.S. military is literally the very thing not only that keeps us safe, but keeps the debt in place. I'll get into that in a minute if we got time.
Would increase. Also included new work requirements, putting time limits on how long some Americans up to age 54 can receive food assistance. Sources say the bill would also preserve Social Security, Medicaid, and veterans benefits.
How confident are you today that this bill will pass on Wednesday?
You're going to have Republicans and Democrats be able to move this to the president. The president agreed with this bill as well.
But hardline conservatives like GOP Virginia Congressman Bob Good are already accusing McCarthy of too many concessions, writing, quote, "No one claiming to be a conservative could justify a yes vote." Tonight, the deal's negotiators on defense.
And you know what they're gonna vote? Yes. Because it's all posturing. Even the people that label themselves hardline Democrats or hardline Republicans or hardline conservatives or hardline liberals, It's all posturing so that when they come later and they try to run for president or they go for re-election, they're going to say, I stood up for you guys, and everybody else just, it's all a finesse. It's 100% a finesse.
This is the most conservative spending package in my service in Congress.
Some Democrats also skeptical.
And I think it is really unfortunate that the president opened the door to this.
I'm anything but a clear yes vote at this point.
With the default looming until the president signs a bill,
these are people's lives.
Single mom of four Megan Hollinger in West Virginia fears
What? Not the single mama, that's a white woman. The white woman that's a single mother, you don't see that often that's promoted within these black spaces. But oh, let me tell you, there are more single white women than you think it is. But let's continue.
delays to her critical Medicaid and food assistance benefits.
So there are other bills that either are going to go unpaid or we're not going to eat.
Now look at her background, y'all. Look at her background. Single mother. When you look at those low ceilings, you know where she at. Wood cabinets, bunch of kids on Medicaid assistance, and sitting here talking to ABC, talking about, well, if they don't pass this, then we're not going to eat. Victim Olympics much? Listen. This woman right here is the face of America. This woman right here, let me rewind it so you can see her take a picture with her kids. You see all of those munchkins having those kids out of wedlock, not doing what she's supposed to do, now depending on the federal government in order to ensure that she can feed her kids. Had 4 of them, can't even feed them. Sitting here holding people accountable for making sure that she get her Medicare and Medicaid and her food stamps. This is the face. Let me show you another picture of her, because I know a lot of y'all like to get food. Y'all get fooled, not food, F-O-O-D, F-O-O-L, fooled. This is the face of America right here. A poor white woman having children out of wedlock, voting, probably a feminist and a liberal, determining what's happening in your elections. It's the truth. There is nothing more true about it. And listen to her talking.
In West Virginia fears delays to her critical Medicaid and food assistance benefit.
Fears delays to her food assistance benefits and her so she getting free health care and food assistance, having children out of wedlock. Black men, you're not the only ones that's catching these L's. I've been telling y'all about white people all over the last 2 weeks.
So there are other bills that either are going to go unpaid or we're not going to eat. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Then don't eat. Don't eat. They're going to say, Anton, you so hard on these people. Anton, you so hard on the women. Black women think that I'm hard on them. No, I'm hard on people that are irresponsible and not doing the thing that's in their best interest, breaking up their homes, not making smart decisions, but don't mind opening up their legs to continue to have children that they then require us with our tax dollars to have to take care of. Then don't eat. Oodles and noodles. Beans and cornbread is the only thing you should be eating right now. I want your kid to have a unhealthy, non-nutritionist, no nutrients, no vitamin diet because of your inability to do the thing that you were supposed to do. Don't eat. We should not continue to raise the debt ceiling because you don't know how to be responsible and you keep opening up your legs and you keep thinking that it's our responsibility to take care of you. Don't raise the debt ceiling, lower it. We need to lower it by about $500 billion every single year and force these hoes not to be able to feed their children so that we can hold them accountable and maybe they can stop having children out of wedlock and then forcing us to pay for it with their tax dollars. Don't eat. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Go back to ramen noodles and beans. That's my solution. That's my solution.
Real life consequences for so many. Elizabeth Schulze joins us now from the White House. Elizabeth, how is the president responding to criticism from his own party that he made too many concessions in this deal?
Lindsay, President Biden admits that not everyone got what they wanted in this deal, but he does insist that it protects key parts of his legislative agenda, like the Inflation Reduction Act. Still, the reality is that for months, the president said he would not negotiate on the debt ceiling. Clearly, this was a negotiation. Lindsay?
Clearly. All right, Elizabeth from the White House for us. Thank you. President Biden and Speaker McCarthy are trying to sell that deal to skeptics in Congress as we careen toward that June 5th deadline. ABC's Jay O'Brien joins us now from Capitol Hill. Jay, walk us through what happens next.
Yeah, Lindsay, both sides of the aisle sprinting to sell this deal tonight. Their first test will be on Wednesday when the House votes. Sources tell ABC News that a small group of House Republicans have already returned to the Capitol to try to drum up support here. Meantime, President Biden.
Just like I told you, it's just a dog and pony show. They all gonna say one thing, and then they're gonna return to the House after they get off vacation to try to get the votes to make sure that they can get this thing passed through, because they already know it's in. That's what. Come on, man. Come on, bro.
Is trying to get moderate Democrats on board, which would be crucial if enough House Republicans vote no on this legislation. The White House briefing members of Congress tonight on the finer points of this agreement. Now, if this deal passes the House on Wednesday, it could go to the Senate as early as that same day. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer telling his colleagues tonight to be prepared for a vote as late as Friday, even that weekend. And that would be down to the wire, especially.
Ain't it amazing how every single time that we have these conversations about the debt ceiling and negotiation, it always come down to the wire? Yo, ever since I've ever opened my eyes and picked up my head, my chinny chin chin off of my pillow, what I've seen happen every single time is that it always goes down to the wire. Are you telling me that our legislators are unable to come to a conclusion to ensure that we can operate as a nation, and every single time it come down to the wire? It ain't nobody that we can find to do a better job than the people that we got in office. Nobody. Every single time it come down to the wire. Partisan agreement. Those are key terms. Negotiations. Some give and push. Hard line liberals, hard line conservatives. Every single time it go down to the wire. Listen, man, I'm going to say it again. For these white women that have multiple different children and multiple different baby daddies that don't work enough to actually be able to pay for them, kids often at times pay for the sins of their parents. It is not anybody else's responsibility, including the federal government, to ensure that your kids is feeding themselves. It's your responsibility. Get up off your ass. Either go get back with the man that you had children with, all four of them, or go and take care of them yourself. But I'm tired of how it is that we see things playing out in society that's not conducive for the direction that we're going in. All right?